Hello, everyone, and thank you all for tuning in to Sophisticated Sunday. I'm going to be your host for today, Quintari Shakir, otherwise known as Nexo, and this is my co-host,
Osun Funke.
And she is not to be fucked with.
Not to be fucked with.
Okay, so today we're going to be conversing for a while to talk about spell books and grimoires, because we haven't really talked.
You should have told me. I would have brought a couple of examples.
I mean,
oh well.
I should have told you. I wish that I had known 24 hours ago
right.
rather than 30 seconds
30
ago.
fucking seconds
ago. But we're talking about grimoires and spell books today.
Okay.
So for those of you that are not familiar with what a grimoire is, there's a video on YouTube by Benebel Wynn.
Yes.
Benebel Wynn. Benebel Wen. Benebel Wynn. She has a three-part video on her talking about the different uses of a grimoire.
And her example, which is the most amazing that I've ever seen. It's amazing.
It's so amazing that I remember a description of the amazement that Devon was in when she saw it. She said, if Benebel Wynn left that grimoire on a bus, I believe that it would grow wings and fly back to her.
It's amazing. You guys check it out.
What made it so amazing to you?
Well, just the artistry, the thoughtfulness of it, the magic that's just infused into every aspect of it, from like the way she laid it out, her table of contents, the ink that she uses. You know, there's even she just explains like the whole creation of the book itself is a ritual, and every page and letter is ritualized, and it's a magical tool. It's not just a reference tool or a journal of her work. It's actually an instruction manual, as well as a record of her success and failures, and it's just a magical tool. It's amazing.
Okay, so the last portion of what you said it's a record. And I think that in your response, somebody could possibly get they may still be asking what exactly is a grimoire?
Okay.
So let's just, for all intents and purposes, what is a grimoire?
So, well, let's start by talking about the difference, or the fact that there is the grimoire and then there's the Book of Shadows. Okay. So if you think about a grimoire, and it sounds kind of like memoir, that's really what it is. The grim denotes a certain shadowy aspect of it. And so a grimoire would not only have instructions or a record of the work that was done, how it's done, the purpose for it, but then it would also have those notes and recollections about the success or failures of the work, things that might need to be tweaked, your thoughts after the work is complete, that kind of a thing. So it's a combination it's more of a journal, whereas a Book of Shadows tends to be a reference book, something that you could hand over to another person and they could theoretically read it and learn something. They could learn, a lot of times Books of Shadows will have things in them like about the moon cycles, the different cycles of the moon and what the energy is like during that time, and how to transmute that energy and use it in your work. A Book of Shadows might have information about different deity that a practitioner works with. It may have information about crystals. It may have information about herbs. It's more informative, whereas the grimoire is more of a personal journal.
So would you describe the books that people can purchase in a metaphysical shop? Those would be more of like a Book of Shadows, because they would come with predetermined recipes or spells that you can use. Here's some information that you all need to know.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them either one. I would just call them reference books. I think that the thing is that your grimoire or your Book of Shadows is meant to be your personal experience.
Right.
So if you buy a book of spells, then you're going to still need to create a Book of Shadows that records or a grimoire that will record your experience or your personal take on those spells. You may add something. You may take something out, leave something out. You may take what was intended to be a love spell and turn it into, a spell for money attraction. Sometimes all we need as practitioners is inspiration. You know, you and I play off of each other all the time. You know, you might do something for one particular purpose, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to try that for this. You know, so yeah.
So two books that to reference, they don't fully qualify as books of shadows. But one is by Anna Riva. It's you can purchase it on Amazon. It's about basically sigils, talismans, or something like that.
I have that book.
I would strongly suggest that you all get that book as a reference point. And the second would be 365 Days of Hoodoo, or it's like 365 Days of Conjure, because you can think of it similar to Iyanla Vanzant's Acts of Faith, where Iyanla gives you, she'll give you quotes to meditate on, or here's food for thought for you to meditate on for that particular day. The 365 Days of Hoodoo will help you to start living the lifestyle of conjure. And I think of it as a good like handoff of a Book of Shadows. Just she's an academic as well. But I wanted to then talk to you about something that you said. You said thoughtfulness and imagery matters when constructing a grimoire. What does that mean? Can you explain it in simple terms?
Well, I think that the thoughtfulness is important because, and I only say that because I'm working on a couple of books right now. One of them is a very large book. I think it's 11 by 16, and it's beautifully bound in this gorgeous purple leather, and it has Medusa embossed on the cover. And so my intention for that book is for it to become a family heirloom. It's something that I'm going to pass down to my children and my grandchildren. And so for me, the thoughtfulness is very important. I've had the book for a year, and I've only written probably 3 words in it so far, because I'm suffering from perfection paralysis, because I just want it to be so perfect for my, I want it to be so perfect. I want it to be well planned. I want each page to be beautiful. I want each line to be precise and perfect, because it will be an heirloom, and it'll be something, that my descendants can draw upon, so I think that thoughtfulness is important for anyone coming behind you and using it. And I think the imagery is important to me because I'm an artist and I'm a creator, and so everything that I do, I like for it to evoke certain feelings.
So when you think about different types of imagery that can be used in a grimoire, what are some of the first things that come to mind?
Sigils.
Okay.
Personal sigils. And people may not have
What's a personal sigil?
Well, a personal sigil would be any symbol, sign, combination of letters that mean something to you. Mm-hmm. We talked on previous shows about the dollar sign being a universal sigil at this point. When you see a dollar sign, we're talking about money. So a sigil is meant to do that same thing. It's a symbol that immediately upon seeing it creates a certain thought form. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage you, if you have not, to create your own personal sigils, because what a sigil does is it cuts out the need for a bunch of thought. Okay, you see it, your subconscious responds, and then that energy is set into motion. If you know anything about the law of attraction, then you know that that's all it takes is for you to have one thought, and then it attracts another and another and another. So I would encourage you guys to create sigils for everything from power to protection to magnetism or attracting money, love, healing, things like that. And then once you have the sigil created and it has synced with your subconscious, then you can use it to anoint candles. You can use it to do almost anything with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So simply put, it only takes 1 second. A sigil is effective because it just takes 1 second of thought to change the cosmos.
Yeah.
And you know that sigils work because pornography could be a sigil. It could be. you know. But I wanted to talk to you about family grimoires before we get into the family Bible. So, what is a family grimoire? Because people are not going to immediately think about their grimoire being something that they can pass down to their children.
Well, they should. You should.
Or if they're passing it down to their children, they may think of it in a simplistic way. I'm going to give it to them as an heirloom, but then it's like, are they telling their children how to use it? So I want to know, how do you plan to use your family grimoire? How are you going to pass it down, and how do you expect it to be used?
Well,
when do you pass it down as well?
That's a good question, and I have not determined that answer yet. You know that I work with my children. Like, my children are on the altar with me. They're in the prayer room with me. They are, working with me. I'm teaching them my craft, and they are priests and priestesses in training, because that is my responsibility to them, and that is our bloodline. That's who we are and what we came here to do. So for me, it's a duty, and one that I'm happy to perform. I can only think, how much further ahead I would be in my practice, and dare I say my entire life, had I had some sort of a grimoire or roadmap, because I know that my grandmothers were wise women. One of my grandmothers had 10 children. My mother never went to the doctor until she was in her 20s, and she was a teacher, and she was able to go, using her teacher wages and insurance.
Right.
My grandmother took care of her children from her kitchen and the herbs in and around her house. And so I know that she had a wealth of knowledge that was lost, because, like many of us descendants of the diaspora, particularly those of us in the South who survived Jim Crow, etc., the first thing our parents and their parents wanted to do was be able to take their kids to the doctor. There was a mark of prestige and something that, you wanted to do. And so we left behind a lot of our treatments and natural cures and knowledge that we had. And that's just talking about medicine. I'm not even talking about magic and conjure and things like that, those type of practices. So my intention is to record as much as I can about what I know, what I have done, and all the things that I will do, and put it in a form that will be easy to follow and reference for my children and their children, and so on and so forth. And I pray that they add on to it, and that it evolves, and it'll just improve their life and their station.
So what about keeping herbs in your Book of Shadows? Because I know you said that you took a trip to Morocco and you encountered this woman who showed you her grandmother's Book of Shadows, and it had these very 100-year-old herbs inside of it, leaves. And so tell me about that experience and what you learned from it.
Well, you can press herbs. You can press herbs and you can press flowers. I know when I was a little girl, my mother was really crafty, and in the summer we would do all kinds of different arts and crafts. And I just remember one year she had the idea to press a bunch of leaves, and so we got this big old dictionary, this big thick Webster's dictionary, and she got wax paper, and we went outside and we collected leaves and flowers, and we came in and we pressed them in between the pages of the dictionary, and we weighted it down. So that's basically how you do it. You would just collect the herbs and flowers that you're concerned with, the ones that you want to write about or use or leave examples of, press them, make sure they're really well dried. And there are a number of different products that you can purchase on Amazon or at the craft store. There are aerosol sprays that become tacky once they dry, and you can press the leaf or the flower to that. You can also use something similar to like a lamination, where there's it's a sheet and it's sticky, and you can apply that over the top of it. So there are a number of ways to do it. But to answer your question about the experience in Morocco, I had the amazing pleasure of visiting with a local healer, and it was in the city of Essaouira. And I'm probably saying that so wrong, but it's on the coast of Morocco. And I had a session with her, a day-long class, and she taught me a lot about the local herbs in Morocco, the theory behind treating in a very homeopathic way. And the book that she showed me was over 100 years old, and it was written in this really ancient looking Arabic script, and it was an amazing experience. And that really inspired me, because I was like, wow, here she is working, and it was her grandfather's book. I was like, wow, here she is, working from her grandfather's book. That was just amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think are the benefits of keeping track of your spells, your successes, and your failures? What are the...
I think you keep track of your failures and your successes. You know what works. You know what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just move forward from that point.
Mm-hmm. It was making me think about those of us that are magical practitioners and also academics as well, being that the academy is, I was talking to someone about this earlier. I was like, you can find academics that believe in the law of quantum physics, but
mm-hmm.
they find it difficult to believe in the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And which are one and the same.
Right.
That being said,
which all come from Ifa. Continue.
And so I was saying that I was telling this particular client, I was like, yeah, I've noticed that as an academic, I had to basically, in sociology, we do what's called coding, or we're tracking patterns in the data that we've, collected.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've learned that's been beneficial for me is to track my experiences so that I can see them pattern in my life. And that has helped me to identify when the spirit is working, when something isn't working, or when it is or isn't working. There are a lot of people, because intention is a key ingredient in the magic that you do. I also feel like behind intention is having a genuine belief in what you're intending to make happen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us that are academics, our minds have been shaped by this idea that the truth is not collaborative, and that if we're doing magic, maybe it worked because it was just probability, maybe it was my personal will, maybe, an event or a circumstance causes to happen, we don't immediately attribute it to our intention or the genuine belief behind our intention. So I would say that keeping track of the spiritual work that you do is going to help you to become more accustomed to a way of thinking that's required to do magic. Because if you overly intellectualize it, you will dilute what it is that you do. And I think that a grimoire is I feel like it's mandatory for anybody to have. But if you are an academic that finds it difficult to get over those intellectual obstacles of is this magic, or is this, like you said to me, is this like a sleight of the hand, or is this something that I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that's caused by random chance versus intentional intention? And so that's why I asked the question. But now I want to talk about the difference between a book, a family Bible, and that not being the same as a family's grimoire.
Well, of course it's not the same, because it's, we're talking about the Bible, and I'm assuming that you're talking about the Christian Bible.
Well, let's say a family Bible in the sense of a book of prayers.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about the family Bible a little bit.
Okay. Sure.
You've been in my workspaces and in my salon, and you know that I have antique Bibles all over the place. I love them. I collect them. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of obsessed with them because, especially in recent history, let me start by saying that in many states, in many southern states, I don't know if these laws still exist, but up until very recently, a death or a birth that was recorded in a family Bible was considered a birth certificate. It was legal. Contracts written in the back of a Bible were considered legally binding documents. Marriages could be recorded in the family Bible and then taken to City Hall and entered into public information. So things written in family Bibles were always given a very high level of consideration. Mm-hmm. And that is based on what you mentioned earlier, that collaborative truth that we all have agreed, and we all believe that it is true that this is a sacred book and the things that you put in it are true and real, or become so once they're entered into the book. So for that reason, that's one of the reasons that I like Bibles a lot. And so people would record things in family Bibles. You know, they write notes. You know, your grandmama will go to church and follow along with pastor and write her notes in the margins of the Bible. Verses are circled. You know, notes are taken. And so I think in a way that if you are fortunate enough to come across a family Bible, hopefully it'll be your family, but even if it's something, you know, that you find in an antique store like I do, there's definitely some value to that and a certain magic, you know, that's associated with that. As far as a family value, like a family Bible, like a book of prayers, my mother actually did give me a book of prayers. Now, it was a book that was printed and published by an author, but she had read it several times over and really, really found it valuable. She made notes in it in doggy-eared pages, and she passed that on to me, and it is a book that I reference a lot. And I have used those prayers have inspired me to write many of my own prayers.
Yeah, I don't have a family Bible, but the one thing that I can say is that I have a Bible that was given to me when I was probably like 11 or 12. It's a regular King James Version Bible that like it's paperback. My mom probably got it from Walmart. I've kept it with me somehow, and it's not like I'm a reader of the Bible, but I've noticed that as it ages like wine. It just becomes more sacred to me, so I can't throw it away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah. It's not something that my family has used, and of course, I would like to at some point start divining with my Bible, and then pass it down to my children. You know what I'm saying? But I feel that the reason I treat the Bible, the one that I have, in that way, is because of the wisdom in the stories. That's pretty much how it feels, versus the academic text that I have, where I feel like this person is woke. Like the boys, I'm like, this is woke material, and this is great for, you know, an undergrad class, but I can't read that at 35 and feel like I'm getting my life or feel like I'm understanding the world more clearly. But with that being said, how do you use your family Bible?
I read the Bible. I read the Bible often. I'm a biblical scholar, as you know. You know, I studied the Bible in college as part of my theology program. I'm also a minister. You know, I've done different ceremonies, marriages, etc. I've spoken at funerals, so I use my Bible. I use my Bible the way preachers use their Bible. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy reading the Bible. I actually had mentioned to you that I'm going to undertake the task of I want to handwrite the Bible. So that's another project that I have on my bucket list. I mean, I just want to actually handwrite the Bible from cover to cover, every word, line, letter, and punctuation. It's just something that I want to do to force me to read the Bible from cover to cover. I'm sure that I have read it from cover to cover, but it's never been that way. Like I read the Old Testament for sure in college, and then I have read the New Testament, you know, just throughout my life, you know. But I would like to be able to say that I've sat down and I've read the Bible. And really for me, it's not just because I was raised as a Christian that I want to do that, but, you know, we think about this book that is 2,000 years old, right? Well, it's actually not that old, because I think the first Bible was like created in 700 AD. But you have this book that, let's call it 1,500 years old or 1,000 years old, right? And wars have been fought for this book, in the name of this book. People have been beat over the head with this book. Other books that are far more valuable to humanity have been burned because of this book. My ancestors were enslaved with the assistance using this book. You get what I'm saying? So anything that has caused that much turmoil and upset in humanity, I think we need to figure out what it's all about. But I also think that there's so many people, y'all excuse me, there's a fly that's driving me crazy. There are so many people who believe in this book. You know what I mean? They base their whole life around it. It's got just this intrinsic, you know, it's importance to it. You know what I mean? And so for that reason, because it's valuable to so many people, I think that just makes it valuable to us all. Because I am a biblical scholar and I have read it, I find a lot of value in the information that it contains. You know, I mean, there are mistakes. You know, there are some dubious references, geographical errors, historical missteps, all kinds of stuff, you know, but it was written by human beings. I don't care what y'all want to say about divine inspiration. There are mistakes in the Bible. And there's so many books that have been written about it. So let's just agree that there are errors in the Bible. But even that being said, it's still valuable. The parables, the stories, you know, are interesting, if nothing else. I mean, you can read the Bible as a piece of literature and just be entertained for years to come. Mm-hmm. You know, so, I mean, I think it's valuable. That's why I read it. That's why I keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, hey, Devon and Tasha. Shout out to my, just making sure my God sister knows I see you. Hey. But, okay, so when I mean, I don't really use the Bible other than as a tool. I haven't read the Bible. I read the book of Revelations. And I read the book of Revelations because I was reading Edgar Cayce. And I was reading Edgar Cayce because I was trying to learn about meditation. So I was reading the Bible to learn about how to open up my seven chakras. Yeah, to open up my chakras so I could come to this revelation of enlightenment.
So why don't you talk about that? Because I know, you know, that we have some trainings by the same priestess. And we were taught, you know, that you can actually use the Bible to open your chakras, right? But there's a lot of occult knowledge in the Bible.
Yeah, so to that point, to be more like factual from my experience, I wasn't taught that from that person. That person recommended me
the book.
What book?
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, which one you?
Is it The Mind of Man?
Yeah. That one. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So I got Meditation and the Mind of Man. Mm-hmm. It's written by some psychologists. You can find it on Amazon. I also get this other book by Edgar Cayce about soulmates, and then there's a last one called Reading the Akashic Records. But yeah, in Meditation and the Mind of Man, and this is a lot because I'm going to talk about the book The Law of One too. So in Meditation and the Mind of Man, Edgar Cayce is channeling some fifth dimensional being. And in this being is basically explaining that meditation is a four-dimensional practice where you are basically bringing things from the spiritual world into the physical realm. It subconsciously shapes your habits and it helps you to produce your destiny. That's the best way that I can put it. He says in Meditation in the Mind of Man, he breaks it down by stanzas, that the Lord's Prayer can break down into 7 stanzas that that each stanza corresponds to one of the 7 chakras. Yeah. He also explains that each stanza will refer to mind, body, spirit, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. And when you read the stanzas, you then understand how it opens up your 7 chakras, which is why this particular mentor was telling us to read the Lord's Prayer before we did any other prayers that we did, because it does open up the 7 chakras. Now, that being said,
tell them the name of that book again. I just want to make sure they get it because they're always asking what to read.
Go to Patreon. And so I meant what I said. You should have got it the first time. So go to Patreon. It's $10 a month. So that being said, is in the book of Revelations, basically Edgar Cayce's retelling of it, or other people's retelling of Edgar Cayce's readings, is saying that the book of Revelations is a metaphorical or an allegorical story about what it's like for you to reach a place of enlightenment, for you to find the God in yourself, for you to face the shadow side of yourself, and for whether it's the light overcomes the darkness or the darkness overcomes the light, one of them has to, 2 things can't exist in the same space at the same time, especially when you're meditating. So if anybody's read the Law of One, I can't remember the person who was channeled by, but the god Ra, the god Ra also spoke about things that Edgar Casey was speaking about from the Bible, that the Bible is for an individualistic purpose. It's not predicting anything. It's not predicting the end times. It's actually telling you how to go about reaching spiritual enlightenment, and the plagues that you experience, such as a third of the water drying. Okay, so if your body's made of 75% water, what's a third of 75%? And think about what that number could be. That being said, there are some mathematical, numerological, mystical elements in the book of Revelations. It does speak to the occult. I suggest you all read the book, The Law of One. If you can't figure out which of the books that you should read from the Law of One, Google The Law of One, Book of Revelations, and then it's going to tell you all about how Egyptian spirits intended for people to use information in, whether it's in the tarot or it's in the Bible. The number 7 is important.
Yes.
The number 7 is, I know that's a stream of consciousness statement, and I'm probably being really, I don't know if this is making any sense, but hit the skull emoji if what I said made any sense to you. And if it didn't, that's too bad. But the book is called Edgar Casey and the Mind of Man, and I ain't repeating it. Go to Patreon. So, what did you learn from Edgar Casey and Edgar Casey's The Mind of Man? Was it helpful to you?
The only thing that really stuck with me was the 7 chakras, and it stuck so well that I can't even remember now.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. It was very huge for me, and it gave me just another reason why, that good old Bible is some good stuff.
Right. And the thing is that meditation on the mind, the fact that in the book, I think he said the witching hour, the best times to meditate are between 1 and 3, the number 13. Yeah. So that in itself, it's an occult book, and it is a psychic reader's occultist interpretation of, well, not even occultist interpretation, but drawing out the occultist elements of the Bible and then translating them to you all in ways that you can understand and pragmatically work from.
Yes, I agree. Get the book. It was good.
Okay, so let's talk about civilian warfare.
Okay.
I know this is random as hell, but they talk about civilian warfare in the Bible all the time. But I want to talk about civilian warfare where it involves it's a spiritual battle where you can't fight with the same physical tools that you would normally fight a war. You're a civilian trying to make somebody's heart stop. Okay. As somebody said in our live earlier, that doesn't want to. So I want to talk about that. So we were talking about before, when we're thinking about prayer, and prayer is currency, and how priests and priestesses have different types of currency, and our prayers will make the loa stop. Now, I'm thinking to myself, why is it that this person would ask, how can I make somebody's heart stop? And I'm just saying to myself, well, you're engaging in civilian warfare. And clearly they are, because they said they had enemies and they didn't follow up on it. When is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate for the average civilian to engage in spiritual warfare?
I think that it is almost always inappropriate to engage in warfare. My personal mantra and my belief, the way that I am being taught by my elders and teachers in Ifa, and just the way I've been raised my whole life, I believe that prayer is probably the most powerful weapon that there is.
So fuel my fire, take me